Have you ever stopped, but really stopped, to ask yourself if you truly know who you are? No, I'm not talking about the name on your ID, your social security number, or the job title that defines you from Monday to Friday. I'm talking about you, that man, staring back at you in the mirror, the one you see, but so often don't really see. You know, Socrates used to say that man's greatest enemy is not another man. It's not the government. It's not society. It's not women. The greatest enemy of man is the man himself, when he chooses to live in ignorance of who he truly is. And right here lies a silent problem, one that few have the courage to face. While you walk through life thinking you're in control, thinking you're being a good guy, a loyal partner, a decent man, someone's watching you, watching in a way you don't even notice. Someone who, without saying a word, reads your insecurities like an open book. And here comes a brutal truth, one most men never wanted to hear. Women notice, and they notice way more than you think. Your doubt, your fear of upsetting her, your need for approval, the way you shrink when she's irritated, the way your voice changes, your posture shifts, your eyes lower. The second you feel you might be rejected, they don't just notice, they feel it. And worse, they don't have to try. It's natural, it's instinctual. Because while you're focused on what you say, on what you do, on what you offer, she's paying attention to everything you don't say. She notices that half-second hesitation before you answer. She notices when you agree to something that bothers you, just to avoid conflict. She notices when your energy shifts, when you pretend you're fine. But deep down, you're silently begging for validation, affection, to be chosen. And that's where the invisible game begins. You know that moment when she looks at you with a subtle smile, gives you a sweet compliment, and then tests you, provokes you, disarms you emotionally. You think it's random, cute, harmless flirting. It's not. It's a precise reading of your inner structure. And no, it's not malice. It's not a conspiracy. This isn't about villainizing women. This is about biology, psychology, survival. Socrates taught that ignorance is the root of all evil. And when a man ignores his own structure, his weaknesses, his emptiness, his fears, he becomes prey, not prey to be destroyed, but prey that can be molded. Because a woman doesn't relate to the man you think you are. She relates to the man she sees, and even more, to the man she notices. You don't see. What does that mean? It means, if you don't know who you are, she defines it for you. And my friend, when that happens, you stop being you, and you become an extension of what she wants, of what she needs, of what she thinks you should be. What starts as connection becomes adjustment. What starts as seduction becomes emotional engineering. And listen, most of the time, she's not even aware she's doing it, because this doesn't come from malice. It comes from instinct, from ancestry, from a brain wired for safety, stability, and control over the environment. And there's one thing you need to understand. Once and for all, insecurity doesn't hide. It leaks. It leaks through your voice, through your body, through your energy. It shows when you accept emotional scraps, when you stay silent just to avoid upsetting her, when you smile awkwardly, pretending you're fine, but inside, you're dying just to not lose her validation. And here's the most brutal part. She notices before you even notice yourself doing it. And the moment she notices, the game changes. Because from that point on, you're no longer in control. You don't lead, you don't guide, you're not a choice. You become an option. And now, here's the question you've probably never asked yourself, and maybe don't. even want the answer to, if you don't know who you are, who do you think is deciding who you become? Socrates made it clear. The path to freedom begins with self-knowledge. The man who does not know himself is condemned to be a slave to the will of others. And my friend, women know this. They know, but they don't say it. And if you don't wake up to this, you'll spend your whole life being a reflection of someone else's expectations, calling it love. You know, there's something no one told you, but you've always felt it. Deep down, you know, you've always known. There's a game being played all the time, even when you pretend not to see it. And in this game, it's not the man who loves the most that wins. It's not the man who gives the most. It's not the man trying to be the nice guy. The one who wins is the one who understands the hidden dynamic, the one who isn't a prisoner of his own neediness. And look, Socrates warned about this thousands of years ago. True ignorance isn't not knowing. It's pretending not to see what's right in front of your face. And here's a truth that hurts. Your insecurity becomes a tool. It's not just a weakness, it's raw material for someone else to shape the relationship however they want. Yes, a woman notices when you're afraid of losing. She notices when you enter the game needing validation, needing to be accepted, needing to be loved at any cost. And when she notices, she grabs the wheel, not on purpose, not out of malice, not because she woke up one day thinking, I'm going to manipulate him. It's biological, it's social, it's instinctual. If you don't lead, someone else will, and that's how the invisible cycle begins. A cycle very few men ever break. She starts testing, measuring, calibrating. A compliment, followed by a little provocation, affection, followed by sudden withdrawal. A promise that never really happens, but keeps you waiting. Sounds cruel, maybe, but it's more natural than it is cruel. The problem isn't that she's playing the game. The problem is that you don't know you're in one. And when you don't know, you're in the game. You have no strategy. You react, you chase, you try to prove yourself. You try to be good enough. And what happens to the man who's constantly trying to prove his worth? It's never enough. Never, because the game was never designed for you to win that way. She doesn't test you because she hates you. She tests to see how far you'll go, how much you'll bend, how much you'll give, without asking for anything in return. And without realizing it, you give everything. Your time, your attention, your love, your energy, your presence. And what do you get? Intermittent rewards, little crumbs of affection that keep you hooked. A smile, here, a touch there, an empty promise, just enough that you don't walk away, but never enough for you to feel truly safe, truly chosen, truly valued. And here's the most brutal part. You think you're being generous, that you're being loving, that you're building something real. But in her eyes, what you're really doing is proving how cheap you are emotionally. Yes, cheap. Because anything that's guaranteed, always available, always there, smiling, accepting, waiting, loses value. Your presence loses value. Your word loses value. Your love loses value. And this is where most men collapse, because they don't realize that while they're busy trying to be the nice guy, they're actually becoming the disposable man. And this isn't about female cruelty. This is about human dynamics, about psychology, about behavioral biology, about how relationships have worked. Since the dawn of time, Socrates said, "The greatest power is born from recognizing your own ignorance. And once you recognize it, you become free." So look at yourself now with brutal honesty and ask, am I in this relationship because I'm a choice or because I'm a convenience? If the answer bothers you, good. You're waking up. The man who begs for love gets crumbs. The man who lives trying to prove his worth is never seen as worthy. You know why? Because deep down, a woman doesn't want you to prove yourself. To her, she wants you to prove yourself. To yourself, she wants, even if she'll never admit it, a man who knows himself, a man who is whole, a man who doesn't live in the constant anxiety of needing to be validated, a man who understands this simple truth: if I have to convince someone to stay, they no longer deserve to be here. And that, my friend, changes everything. From this point on, you're no longer a piece in the game. You become the board itself. You think silence means the absence of communication. If you believe that, welcome to the mistake that destroys thousands of men every single day, without them even realizing it. Socrates used to teach that even silence is an answer, and a brutally honest one. Silence isn't empty. It's full of non-verbal language, full of energy, full of insecurity, doubt, or certainty. And here's yet another subtle trap that most men don't have the courage to face. She reads your silence, long before you even realize you're being read. You know that moment when you stay quiet just to avoid a fight, or when you dodge a difficult subject. Pretend you didn't hear, didn't notice, didn't see, or that crooked little smile, when you're trying to seem chill, but deep down it only shows how uncomfortable you are. Yeah, you think you're hiding. She thinks she's scanning. Because unlike you, who grew up believing that if you just stay quiet, everything will be fine, she was taught, since she was a little girl, that a man's silence says everything. When you don't react, don't stand your ground, don't take a position, she doesn't think, wow, he's mature, he's so balanced. No. What she actually thinks is, he doesn't know who he is. He doesn't know if he deserves. He doesn't know if he has the right to say no. And here's the cruelest detail of all. She's not doing this consciously. She's not being manipulative. She's not being evil. It's natural. It's automatic. It's biological. Women have always been hyper-attuned to reading the social environment since the beginning of humanity. Because while men sought survival through physical strength, women survived through perception, through reading people, through emotional intelligence. So, yes, she notices when your posture shrinks. She notices when your voice lowers. She notices when you avoid eye contact. She notices when your silence isn't wisdom, but fear. And when she notices that, she realizes you can be molded, that you can be adjusted, that you are willing to sacrifice your truth just to keep her approval. And my friend, the day you sacrifice your truth for someone else's affection is the day you stop being a man and become a hostage to validation, a hostage to the fear of loss, a hostage to the illusion that if you just stay quiet, if you don't rock the boat, she'll appreciate you more. Let me tell you something nobody told you, but Socrates has been screaming to the world for over 2,000 years. The price of not taking a stand is being controlled by those who do. And this isn't about being aggressive. It's not about yelling, pounding your chest, acting like an alpha. No, that's just another form of insecurity, disguised as arrogance. This is about presence. It's about that silent energy that says, without you ever opening your mouth, I know who I am, I don't sell out, and I don't fold. That kind of silence she respects. The silence of a man who is whole, who is secure, who isn't afraid of losing. She feels it. She may not even be able to explain why, but it triggers something primal, deep in her nervous system. But that other kind of silence, the silence that comes from fear, hesitation, emotional cowardice, she feels that too. And when she feels it, she loses respect. And let me hit you with something that may hurt to hear. When respect dies, love starts to die too. Because for a woman, love without respect becomes pity, and no man survives being loved out of pity. So look at your life, right now. Look at your posture. Look at your silences. Look at all the discomfort you don't voice, and ask yourself, honestly, the kind of question Socrates would ask if he were sitting in front of you, staring straight into your soul. What is my silence actually communicating? Strength or fear? Because here's the truth. You're not hiding anything. You never were. She's always known. She's always felt it. She's always read it. The real question was never whether she notices. The real question is, do you notice? There's an illusion, one that destroys more men than any crisis, any recession, any war. The illusion that she will give you what you don't give yourself. So let me give you a truth, raw, unfiltered, and yes, uncomfortable. A woman doesn't treat you how you want to be treated. She treats you how you allow her to treat you. Even more than that, she treats you the way you treat yourself. Socrates said, "Know thyself." And if you don't, she hands you a mirror, but not a reflection of the man you wish you were. No, she hands you the reflection of the man you're actually being. And here lies the most brutal and most honest dynamic in all of relationships. She doesn't respond to your words, she responds to your energy. You can say you're strong, you can say you're confident, you can say you're decisive. Say it all you want. But if in reality you keep folding, keep avoiding discomfort, keep sacrificing your authenticity for scraps of validation, do you know what she sees? She sees a man who does not lead his own life. And when she notices that, the dynamic shifts subtly, invisibly. Suddenly, that sweet affection becomes disguised criticism. That admiring gaze turns into a test. That charming smile shifts into subtle sarcasm, and you don't even notice when it happens. But you do notice that little by little, the woman who once looked at you as a man now looks at you as a project of emotional re-education, a project of behavioral correction, a project of a moldable man. And don't get it twisted. It's not because she's cruel. It's not because she wants to destroy you. It's because biologically, emotionally, psychologically, she's wired to test, to calibrate, to measure. Why? Because safety is the deepest female instinct. And safety doesn't come from what you say. It comes from what you prove. That you don't sell yourself. That you don't bend. That you don't beg. That you don't need to be chosen in order to exist. And here lies the most brutal paradox of all. The man who lives to please is never loved, but the man who lives his truth, even if it creates discomfort, is deeply desired. You know that narrative that says she wants a sensitive, available man who talks about his feelings 24/7. A lie, a socially accepted lie, a culturally spread lie, but biologically incoherent. What she truly wants, even if she'll never say it out loud, is a man. She cannot bend. She doesn't want to control you. She just wants to test, if it's even possible. And when she realizes it's not, that's when she relaxes. That's when she opens. That's when she feels safe. Because in the end, she doesn't want control. She wants to know she's beside a man who controls himself. You know that posture she can't describe, but she feels. That gaze that doesn't drop, that tone of voice that doesn't tremble, that decision that doesn't back down. That triggers something in her that no compliment, no flowers, no good morning text ever will. Because the man who does not negotiate his essence is the man she respects. And where there is respect, real desire is born. Now, look at your life with brutal honesty. Tell me, right now, are you reflecting the man who knows himself, who is enough, who knows his worth? Or are you reflecting the man who keeps shape-shifting just to be good enough? You know that feeling that no matter what you do, it's never enough? That comes exactly from this, from the mistake of thinking you need to be approved, to be accepted. But a woman doesn't love the man who bends. She loves deeply the man who stands tall, even when she tests him, even when she threatens to walk away, even when she pulls away just to see if you'll chase. And when she realizes you don't chase, that you don't negotiate yourself, that you're not willing to lose yourself just to not lose her. Do you know what happens? She adjusts, she realigns, she recalibrates. Because in the end, a woman doesn't want to own you. She wants to be your partner, but only to a man who leads his own life. And as Socrates once said, an unexamined life is not worth living. If you don't examine yourself, she will examine you and she will mold you. But if you know yourself, if you hold your ground, if you align with your truth, then, my friend, no one molds you. You become the mirror that she learns to respect, and anyone who doesn't respect that simply disappears from your life. So, here we are. And if you made it this far, let me tell you something. You are no longer the same man who pressed play at the beginning of this video, because once you see it, you can't unsee it. Truth doesn't have an off switch. It might be uncomfortable, it might sting, it might leave you angry, frustrated, in denial, maybe even heartbroken. But one thing it will never do is stop being the truth. Now you know that women see what you don't say, that they read your insecurities before you're even aware of them, that the man who lives trying to be chosen becomes invisible, and that as long as you don't lead your own life, you're just an extra in someone else's story, an extra in her life, an extra in the world, an extra in your own existence. Socrates died saying, "An unexamined life is not worth living." And now you finally understand. It's not just some poetic line in a dusty philosophy book. It's a sentence, a law, a code of honor for any man who chooses to actually live as a man and not as a spectator. And now, my friend, you have a choice. You can close this video. Pretend you didn't hear any of this. Act like it doesn't apply to you. Go back to sleep. Or you can decide right now that you will never again accept being a hostage, that you will never again bend, shrink, or sell yourself out just for scraps of validation. You can decide today to start living the most powerful philosophy that has ever existed, the philosophy of self-sufficiency, the man who is enough, the man who does not fear solitude, the man who does not beg, the man who does not negotiate his essence, the man who does not live to be chosen, but who lives because he chooses. And ironically, it is this man who becomes impossible to ignore, because while the whole world is out there desperately chasing approval, the man who doesn't chase becomes the source. And when that happens, she looks at you differently. The world looks at you differently. Not as the man desperate to be loved, but as the man who loves himself. Not as the man begging to be validated, but as the man who validates his own existence. And listen, if this video spoke to you, if it hit you right where it needed to hit, then you have a mission now. First, hit that like button, subscribe to this channel, Because here, we don't sell illusions. Here, we speak the truth. The kind of truth that nobody else has the courage to say out loud. And most importantly, share this with another man. A man you know is asleep. A man who desperately needs to wake the hell up. And if you want to keep walking this path, if you want to dive even deeper into this awakening, then watch this video right here on the screen, where I show you how Schopenhauer exposed the brutal reason why the men who suffer in silence are in fact the most desired, even if women will never admit it. My name isn't Socrates, and it doesn't need to be. But just like him, I refuse to live in illusion. I'll see you at the next awakening.